So if you're running Tren at pretty high dosages and combining it with Anadrol, but you don't have any side effects, you clearly have some secrets to share. How can we run Trenbolone without any side effects? It seems that with tests, it's like, I think you can only stack it with Masteron or Bordelone or Primo at higher dosages, but as soon as test is high, you stack it with Nandrolone, Tren,
It gets weird.
Testosterone, then no, it gets nasty. Right? Or
Yeah.
Anadrol. So I've done 2.5 gram test cycles, but that was solo. Test
Yes,
GH
me too.
insulin, best cycles ever, right?
Yep, I agree.
And of course, you get some diminishing returns as the dose goes up, but then you start training twice per day, and the diminishing returns turn into positive returns again. So you kind of have to adjust your training protocol and your diet accordingly. But then, yeah, as soon as the Tren comes in and the other stuff, you kind of need to make sure that the test dose comes down. And we discussed that with Wesley Vissers on one of the podcasts, right? That, as you come into the show, maybe the test dose goes down a little bit, DHTs goes up. And that has worked for many a competitor over the last couple of decades to kind of do it that way instead of just, throwing in the letrozole at the end and then flattening out. So yeah, there's multiple ways to kind of skin it. Did you notice any bad side effects on the combination of Tren, Masteron, Anadrol?
Only when I had the test. So originally the test was at 1200.
Yeah,
I was at 300 every other day. The sleep was disrupted, right? Which I initially thought was Trenbolone, but it didn't seem to be. Again, I have a very high tolerance for Tren, so it doesn't really cause side effects noticeably, at least now. I mean, I think the first time I used Tren, I think I was throwing things around the house and yelling at everyone. I feel pretty much nothing on it now, but so I think what was most likely happening is, like you said, the Tren is basically occupying the classic AR, right, and doing its thing. And the test is then either hitting, the surface receptor or something and causing non-genomic responses you just don't want, right? And that was probably stimulating my brain too much at night.
Yeah, and then of course, if you have the Anadrol in there, which also potentiates a good amount of non-genomic responses,
it's all non-genomic.
occupying those pathways.
And we don't get with the genomic androgen receptor, with the classic, when it releases from the heat shock protein actually goes to the cell surface and basically blocks estrogen as well. Mm-hmm. So you have a double effect. And if the test isn't hitting that receptor and it's going to the cell surface one, there's no heat shock protein. So you're kind of getting a double whammy with the estradiol as well. Right. So you're not blocking it, and it's going to aromatize more readily.
So if you're running Tren at pretty high dosages and combining it with Anadrol, but you don't have any side effects, you clearly have some secrets to share. And that's what I wanted to get into. Like, how can we run Trenbolone without any side effects? So for me, the solution was to take the pussy dose of 25 milligrams per week, sub-Q, and I barely have any side effects. And my irritability is slightly increased. Could be from dieting, could be from taking the SSRIs out, or by adding in the Tren. But at 25 milligrams per week, which basically was the dose where you get the highest anabolic to androgenic dissociation for my body weight and the maximum amount of glucocorticoid receptor inhibition, so I get all the anti-catabolic benefits at this dose. So this is the dose that I'm running where I get benefits and no side effects. Now, that doesn't sound appealing to everybody because they want more of the benefits without the side effects, because Tren does start to shine when you go to 150, 175, 350.
I mean, the original data was showing like 100 milligrams a day of acetate was really like where muscle growth was maximized with it. Now, guys nowadays kind of shy. Outside of like competitors, guys tend to shy away from that stuff. Yeah. But if the low dose stuff is working for you, then
we do have a lot of competitors watching. Yeah, some of them are competing at the Mr. Olympia, so they would like to know how the fuck can we get away with 100 milligrams Trenbolone acetate per day and then not get any of the side effects?
Well, some of the guys in the Olympia stage are running. Some of them are running 2 to 250 acetate a day.
Yeah,
so something that Dean and I did a video about, the magnesium, increasing my magnesium at bed made a huge impact on not just side effects from Trenbolone, but just in general sleep quality. And I think something else I've done is I split my GH dose up where the large bolus of it is at night. So I'm doing 6 IUs or would that be so 2 milligrams of Serostim at night. I should be talking about growth hormone in milligrams, like it's classically discussed, and 1 milligram in the morning. And the 2 milligrams at night, I sleep like a rock. So it probably offsets anything that I would feel from the Trenbolone anyway, because I don't remember. Within 30 minutes of injecting, I can't keep my eyes open. And then the next thing I remember is my alarm going off.
So now we got the sleep quality covered. And of course, that is very important for, preventing amyloid plaque buildup, because you have adequate melatonin release, which seems to mitigate some of the amyloid plaque buildup. Again, it's only 1 or 2 studies in animal models that show amyloid plaque buildup in Trenbolone. But that could contribute, obviously, to Alzheimer's disease formation and maybe impair moods. But it's also the sleep quality that kind of ruins your mood if you don't sleep well for a multitude of days in a row. I mean, that happens without Tren. You don't sleep well, your mood just turns to shit. So the sleep quality management on Trenbolone is very important. The way I always overcome it is by doing daily subcutaneous microadministrations in the morning. Okay. So when you do take Trenbolone acetates, the bulk of the androgenic signaling in the central nervous system stimulation and maybe dopaminergic effects are kind of tapering down by the time you go to bed. So I found that to work. And even when I ran 50 milligrams per day, even 150 milligrams per day, daily sub-Q shots or daily intramuscular shots in the morning, that seemed to mitigate some of the sleep impairment at night.
They also, in the rat studies with Tren, again, cows and rats and humans metabolize Tren differently. We're much more similar to a cow in that case with the metabolites. But it seems that when testosterone was added to the Trenbolone, it seems to offset a lot of that plaque buildup. Whether it's testosterone itself or it's some level of estrogen, I don't know if anyone knows the answer to that. I think that's still something that's worth looking into. So again, right, because half the Trenbolone studies in cattle were done and rats were done Trenbolone solo, like most studies, right? They're using one drug and they're seeing an effect. When they actually tried to use testosterone with it, it seemed to alleviate a lot of that.
Yeah, and in many of these studies, the rats or the cattle were castrated. So there's zero estrogen and zero testosterone. And of course, how much of an effect does that have? I mean, no one knows. I think most people don't run Trenbolone solo. I'm sure there's some outliers out there. But most of us would be smart enough to have a testosterone base and a good amount of aromatization. And how many of us have done a brain biopsy where we can see amyloid plaque buildup after? I mean, I need my brain cells, as little as I have left. To see if there's any problem there.
I was reading something there recently, and when we if you castrate someone, so if we reduce total testosterone synthesis, let's say we reduce it like 95% with castration, a function of testosterone still is there about 45%. So you've still got that intracrine creation of testosterone from the precursors, from androstenedione, DHEA.
Adrenals.
So from the adrenals, or even, tissue conversion, muscle cell conversion through the dehydrogenase enzymes, that even, if you run these things solo, you're probably still making some level of intracrine testosterone naturally.
And DHT, right? There's a backdoor method of DHT from progesterone. The body's very capable of making things in its absence.